Hello and welcome to Q Sports. I'm Umudu Kajaga. Thank you for joining us. Coming up tonight, we're talking about footballers who have heart conditions. Well, one of them will retire at the age of 24. That is Zambia's Enoch Mwepu. He's a 24-year-old footballer who plays for Brighton Hove Albion in the English Premier League and just recently returned from Zambia to play for his nation in a friendly with Mali. Well, it was announced that he was ill, and after further test was done, he had this hereditary heart condition, which is very serious. So now he can no longer play football according to the doctor's advice. He talks about his sadness after that test was conducted. We'll also look at Gambian footballers who were playing over the weekend in Europe and also in Africa, even in the CAF Champions League. Lamin Jaju again for Al Hilal, and we will also be looking at the sport administrators training organized by the Gambian National Olympic Committee. All that on tonight's Q Sports. Welcome and thank you for joining us. This is Q Sports tonight, and I am Mamudu Gajaga. I'm joined in the studio by journalist Ade Drame to talk about footballers and heart conditions. How sad a story is a 24-year-old retiring from football when he has so much ahead of him, a lot of bright future. That is Enoch Mwepu, a Zambian footballer who plays his club football for Brighton Hove Albion. We're talking about footballers and heart conditions, that is cardiac arrest, where there are different types, but one of the cardiac arrest that has held footballers, end up succumbing, some of them, even on the pitch, the likes of Marc-Vivien Foé, Antonio Puerta, Fabrice Muamba, of course, yes, he didn't die, he later continue other aspects of life, not football, and Christian Eriksen of recent. But now we're talking about a Zambian footballer, Enoch Mwepu, who plays for Brighton Hove Albion in the English Premier League. Just at the age of 24, he is going to retire from playing football because of a heart condition. Joining me in the studio is Mr. Ade Darame to talk about players and heart conditions, especially the one that he suffered. It is said, not through the normal test. It can be with you for years without detecting it. It is only when it gets bad, that's the time. It must be very sad at the age of 24.
It's sad, it's devastating. This is a young man who was established in the team, was obviously at the age of 24 looking forward to possibly playing another 10 years these days. Or in the case of Cristiano Ronaldo, 37, so maybe another 13 years.
13 years.
But you're right. We heard what happened with Sergio Aguero. Fantastic career, signs for Barcelona. 6 months later, he gets diagnosed with a similar thing. Nobody had guessed that Aguero had that, and he's had to retire. So, and what's kind of ironic, most of the people that we're mentioning, they've all played in English football. Daley Blind, Eriksen, currently at Man United, who's had an implant. To allow him to carry on playing.
Fabrice Muamba,
Marc-Vivien Foé, all of them that had sort of some sort of involvement in English football. So it's kind of weird. There's no connection, obviously, between them. But for most of these young men, and they are young men, it's the most devastating news you could possibly imagine, because just think about it. It's not an injury that you've picked up on the pitch. In the case of Enoch Mwepu, it's hereditary. And now his brother, Francisco, who plays in Austria, must be very concerned, because I guess they're going to run similar tests on him now, because they've told him it's hereditary. So really, really shocking. Yeah.
Very, very shocking indeed. And when it comes to the advancement in the medical field and medical sciences altogether, this is a condition that do not manifest at the initial stage. It has to get really bad. Some would, in fact, for him, he's lucky that he didn't collapse on the pitch, like for needing somebody to resuscitate him.
Which is what happened with Fabrice Muamba.
And even Eriksen.
Eriksen as well, their heart stopped, people, and of course, worst of all, Marc-Vivien Foé, you and I were discussing this. I was actually watching that game, and I have to say, and I have to be honest about this, when he collapsed, I thought it was just, because it was a hot day, and I just thought it was heat stroke. So, because they were taking long to take him off the pitch, I thought, let me go out. So I went out, and as I was going out, I looked in a pub. I was in London at the time, and I looked through a pub, and I saw the news came on, and they had his picture, and it was the first item on the news. So I ran into the pub, and I thought, what's happened? And even now,
it invokes a lot of emotions. I watched it as well. The 2003, the Confederations Cup, just as a build-up to the World
even
Cup.
now thinking about it, I choke up about it.
They played against Colombia. Definitely devastating.
And next thing they announced he was dead, and it was just shock. I remember phoning friends and thinking, did you hear, did you see this? And so, these are young men who are, at the top of their game, top of their profession, and it's the last thing they want. As I said, football can be a risky business because it's a physical sport. People can get injured on the pitch. A footballer who breaks his leg can probably accept it. It's part of the game. But for something like this, you will struggle to accept it because it just seems so unfair and so arbitrary, It's really tragic for him.
Absolutely tragic. And, Mwepu said he is retiring with sadness, adding that he lived his dream by reaching the Premier League, but that some dreams come to an end. Well, as a 24-year-old, that's the last thing that you will think in your career as a footballer.
Truly, and I wouldn't want to be in his shoes because for most of them, as I said earlier, they're probably thinking of a long career. And so at the age of 24, he probably hasn't made any other plans beyond having a long football career. And then now, because, for most people, they want to play in La Liga, Premier League, Serie A, and probably Bundesliga. And, he's now, was now, one has to say, playing in the Premier League. And that's like the pinnacle of club football for many footballers. And so he would have been looking forward to a long career as that. And then now it's just cut short. Really, really sad. And
aside from his dream of playing club football, especially in the English Premier League, even for his national team, Zambia, he would want to represent his country at the highest level, play AFCON, and then, from on there,
who knows, possibly, qualify for the World Cup if come the next World Cup. So all of those dreams are now, they've turned to dust, and one has to feel sorry for him. And I don't know him, but I will be reaching out and just sending my own sort of remarks to him and saying, sorry to hear what has happened in your career, because as I said, you and I have discussed this before. I once dreamed of being a professional footballer, and I didn't because I had so many injuries. My parents didn't want me to go. So, but had my career, such as it was, had it been ended by injury, I would have accepted it. But I don't know how I would have accepted something like this at the age of 24. It must be really, really hard. Because keep going on about it. You plan for a long career. At that stage, there's everything before you. The world is your oyster. You're thinking of playing in the Premier League, your team finishing high up, possibly qualifying for the Europa League, or in a remarkable season for the Champions League. All those things, they're gone. They're gone for him, and it's really sad. I really feel for him.
In terms of studying hard conditions and with the devastations that they come with, especially for athletes, footballers in particular, do you think more research needs to be done, how to avert it when it happens? Well, we've seen situations where players are rescued, yes, with the help of God. Christian Eriksen's situation, at one point everyone thought he has gone already. He died. Yeah. But for some reason, somehow.
And the same with Muamba.
Muamba as well. So they managed to survive it.
Yeah, I mean, and football is one of the most lucrative sports in the world in terms of revenue that comes in. The English Premier League every year, I think their current deal just for 1 year that they sign with TV companies around the world is something like £3 billion. Pounds. It's a lot of money. And you would imagine that they would put, and I think a lot of them do put a lot of effort and money into research, because the club can only succeed if its athletes, the footballers, are fit, and so they want them to be at the top of their health, and so they monitor them regularly. They put heart monitors on them when they're doing training. Obviously you can't put it on them when they are playing a match, but when these things happen, Muamba, Mwepu, Eriksen and now Aguero, I think a lot of them will be saying, you know what, we need to test our players on a regular basis.
Yeah. Where does this leave us, Africa, with almost non-existent equipment when it comes to things like this, even where it exists, maybe in a very poor capacity? The resources are not available to be able to do a regular test on heart, apart from the most advanced of countries and maybe clubs.
Well, this is it. And if you look at even our sub-region, say the ECOWAS sub-region, not too long ago, both in Ghana and Nigeria, players have collapsed and died on the pitch. You know, I'm talking about in the last 18 months. So I'm not talking about centuries ago. So we obviously don't have it. And those are countries far richer than the likes of the Gambia. So you have to worry and you have to wonder, you know, how many similar cases have happened that have gone, you know, relatively unreported because maybe they were playing for some small club, some amateur club, because they don't all have to be top line professionals to get it. You know, it's, after all, it's a condition that doesn't discriminate. And you have to worry about Africa that, you know, how would we ever capture such a thing? And I don't know. On the African continent, I'm not sure there is a way.
Just 2 weeks ago, I participated in a road race, often called marathon in Gambia, in Fonyi, around the Kanfenda area, between Buyam and Kanfenda, 5 kilometers. So all I see they did was to do a kind of a blood pressure test before the runners get onto the road. It was in the scorching sun, midday, and it was about 35 degrees. Yeah. So if that is all what is available, because these people, they're coming to run in the sun and they're going to compete. Sure. So if somebody has a heart condition, well, it's going to be very difficult.
It's going to be difficult. And I have to say this, you know, there's some people on Facebook who always tease me about this. They invite me to all these races. And I say to them plainly, I am not fit. I am seriously unfit. My days as an athlete were 30, 40 years ago. And I haven't really kept fit beyond a certain level of fitness. I don't think I can run 5K or 10K without training. And so I turn it down. And they're always teasing me on Facebook, oh, why don't you accept our invitation? But it's for those reasons. I don't want to collapse and dive just to prove a point that I can run 10K on the scorching sun. You know, so we have to be careful about this. And we have to say, if we're encouraging people to run in these types of races, you know, are you fit? Have you done a certain amount of training before taking part in it? Don't just say, yesterday I was busy putting my feet up and today I'm going to run 5K or 10K. You'll end up dying.
Absolutely.
You know? So,
and talking about some of these players who had these sorts of conditions, had cardiac arrest, Sheikh Ismail Tiote, Ivory Coast, former Newcastle player, who was in China playing club football and then in training, collapsed and died.
That's right, that's right. And Sheikh Tiote, everybody remembers the wonderful goal he scored for Newcastle. 4-4 against Arsenal. You know, like I said, I think he was, what, 32, 33?
Yeah, 32, 33 years old.
You know, when he died. And so, you know, these days, for a footballer, that's nothing, it's not considered much of an age. You know, you had Phil Jagielka scoring at the weekend. He scored at the age of 40 against his former club, Sheffield United, to win. So, you know, if you're fit, you can play up to the age of 40. Zlatan is now 40, going on 41, still playing at the top of his game in Serie A. So these things, they come out of the blue, and I'm not sure there's any way of capturing them. If somebody has, as in the case of Mwepu, something which is hereditary, how do you catch it? And that's why I said, you know, I'm concerned now for his brother Francisco, who's only 22, playing for Sturm Graz in Austria. He must be really, really worried, because I suspect they'll call him in for tests, say, look, we've heard what's happened with your brother, it's hereditary, let's see whether you are suffering from the same thing. And there doesn't seem to be, in the case of Mwepu, the option that Eriksen has to have like a, you know,
sort of a transplant or something.
That's right.
That sort of thing.
You know, fitted, and they've told him, to save your life, stop playing right now.
Right now.
So, and that's a shame, really. And I hope maybe if his brother gets tested and gets the all clear, that might be a crumb of comfort for them as a family.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another footballer for Sevilla this time, Antonio Poeta.
Yeah,
that's a game that I watched.
Right.
A league game. It was the opener of the league, and yeah, he just also collapsed and couldn't make it.
He couldn't make it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Paramedics And all the officials tried everything possible to save his life.
And they couldn't. And then former Man United player Daley Blind, who's
still playing.
Still playing in Ajax. He had a implantable defibrillator fitted, and he's still playing. So who knows? We pray, make dua for Mwepu. Perhaps there is a way, if they can. But they seem to have, the diagnosis and the prognosis seems to be that in the type of condition he has, he will not be able to carry on, even if they fitted something. So they've advised him, to just stop. Yeah.
We'll still come back to Africa, in a particular country like the Gambia, where league footballers sometimes don't even earn, close to even $5,000 a month. And, when it comes to the medical care of the players, either, yes, the clubs don't have the resources, even if they intend to have the best of medical facilities. Yes, I know before the leagues get underway, they will say each player would go for a general medical test, which they would do, obviously. But sometimes you even wonder how those medical tests are conducted.
For me, those who've watched me over the last year or two in the Gambia, they know how I've ranted about how I felt the FIFA forward money has not been used or used wisely in the Gambia. If you go to some countries in Africa, what they've done is that they've actually used that money for medical equipment of the sort that we're talking about. There's nothing to stop them. The money is sitting there. It's been sitting there since 2016, and they haven't used several millions of it. Sitting there unused. Look, if we are serious, and particularly the conditions that we get people to play in here in the Gambia, I mean, there are all sorts of reasons why we should be getting some of that money to get some of this equipment to actually safeguard the health and well-being of our players. And I get really angry about this, because for me they're just lazy, or they're inept, or a combination of those. They should be using that fund, those funds rather, to buy that equipment so that people can feel safe.
Our hearts off to Enoch Mwepu, and also the other footballers who are going through these very difficult times as far as these heart conditions are concerned. Retiring at the age of 24 could be one of the worst things in football. I wish we could continue this discussion, but that's it for now. Thank you very much for your time.
It's a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
And Q Sports continues after the break. Still on Q Sports, now a roundup of Gambian footballers who have been playing over the weekend. Some of them being involved, especially in the French second division. For Grenoble Foot, it was Abdoulaye Sanyang Bambalai who scored 2 goals in his team's 3-2 victory. Also involvement for Assane Cisse when Roma played against Lecce, but Assane Cisse's Lecce side lost to Roma by 2-1. We'll also look at the CAF Champions League, the involvement of Lamin Jaju for Al Hilal. All that in this roundup. While Musa Barrow missed the game due to an injury, Omar Colley and USC Sampdoria registered their 3rd draw of the new league season against Bologna on Saturday. Colley had 55 touches, with 5 clearances and 7 recoveries in the 1-1 draw. No player has won most dribbles 2, most tackles 3, and most duels 9 than Assane Cisse in USC Lecce's match against AS Roma on Sunday. Scoring 2 goals in the first 10 minutes of the game, Abdoulaye Sanyang came off at the end of the first half for what looks like a thigh injury in the game against Laval on Saturday. Grenoble Foot 38 are yet to communicate the state of that injury, but we hope it's not too serious. Ali Sow scored a 90-minute winner for MKE Ankara Gucu to win 2-1 over Istanbulspor in the Turkish Superliga. In what was his 5th start this season, Ali completed the game with 3 shots and 2 chances created. Ibu Toure with a low cross in the area to assist Gilbatre's goal for Salford City FC as they beat Northampton 1-0 on Saturday. No player has created more chances for than Ibu in the match. Finally on Q Sports, the Sports Administrators Training organized by the Gambian National Olympic Committee. It's for presidents and also the Secretary Generals of National Sports Associations, especially the ones who are into Olympic sports. More details about that. I attended the opening session of the training, and this is the report. This sports administration course aims to improve sports administration and good governance in Gambian sports, and more than 20 participants are taking part. Beatrice Allen, president of the Gambian National Olympic Committee, says capacity building for those who participate in sports is important.
This course is designed to develop the capacity of leaders in sports for the delivery of ethical sports and to promote and sustain good governance in sports within the Olympic and sports movement in the Gambia. It will also assist in strengthening management in decision-making and provide best practices, especially within the Gambia NOC and its constituencies. To my colleagues and course participants, this training is one of the giant steps we have to take in order to broaden our understanding of the values of the Olympic movement. Therefore, I would advise you to take this course very seriously.
There is little representation of women in the training program. Women in sports leadership in the Gambia account for less than 10%, especially in leadership positions. Despite having many women participants in last year's training, Beatrice Allen says they will investigate women's representation in the training to ensure an improvement.
It is true that it's difficult to canvass women from national federations because they don't have them. But also, last year, we had a lot of women here that did the administration course. Once you do it, you don't have to do it again. So what we are going to do is we are going to do a little survey of those women to see what they have been doing after that course, so that we'll be able to strategize better to have women into this.
Lamin Sane, former athlete and a seasoned sports administrator, is one of the course administrators. He gave an overview of the sports administrator training.
Sport is the entity that when we use can develop peace, can promote peace, and bring us together. Because its main vision is to ensure that we live in harmony and we live peacefully. So therefore, today's course is expected to build synergies, to prepare us to become more responsive in our domain as sports secretary generals in our association. Because sports need good governance, it needs universality, it needs to promote our development. And in doing so, you have to prepare well enough as secretary generals of sports institutions we have in our areas. So therefore, I have the view, after this 5 days training, all of us would have the knowledge and understanding of how to govern sports in our institutions or in our associations.
The Sports Administrator Training Program is expected to build the capacities of secretaries and presidents of national sports associations and GNOC board members to improve sports in the country. Well, that's it for Q Sports tonight. Thank you very much for watching. Join us again next week and keep on sporting. Bye.